Everyone in the colony said she was cursed, her shimmering violet skin, the delicate horns curling behind her ears, the way flowers wilted when she walked by. They feared her, called her a bad omen, and left her to wander the outskirts alone. But one human saw past the whispers and the shadows. When he looked into her tearful eyes, he didn't see a curse, he saw a miracle waiting to bloom. And with just one outstretched hand, he changed her entire world. They called her cursed from the moment she was born. The elders said the violet hue of her skin marked her as an omen of famine and death. When her horns started to curl behind her ears like delicate silver spirals, they only confirmed their fears. In her small village nestled on the edge of the misty mountain valleys, any sign of difference was met with suspicion. Her mother had tried to hide her, swaddling her in layers of cloth, keeping her away from the village square. But children wander, they always do, and when she was 7 cycles old, she stumbled into the annual harvest festival. The villagers screamed when they saw her violet hands reach for the sweet root cakes. They dragged her mother into the square, shouting that she had harbored a demon. Her mother wept and clutched her daughter's tiny face, kissing her forehead over and over as they tore them apart. From that day on, the girl wandered alone beyond the borders, subsisting on wild berries and roots, living in an abandoned shed under the tall singing trees. Her horns grew longer as she aged, her hair turned from dark charcoal to shimmering starlight silver. At night, she sang to herself, lullabies her mother once hummed. She had no mirror, but she could feel her skin glow faintly under moonlight. When she approached the edges of the village for scraps, she heard mothers whispering to their children, "Don't look at her, she'll curse you, she's the reason the rain won't fall, she'll bring sickness if she breathes too close." One morning, a group of village hunters found her gathering water. They hissed at her through stones, and one spat directly into her face. "Get out, demon girl, leave us before you kill us all." She ran with bruises blooming on her thin arms, blood trickling from her cheek where a sharp rock had cut her. She did not stop until she reached the high ridges where the wind howled and nothing grew but dry moss. Up there, she collapsed among the stones, curling her knees to her chest. She was certain she would die. Maybe that was what they wanted. Maybe it would be better. She imagined her mother's soft humming and fell into a restless sleep. That was when he arrived, the human named Ethan. He came from far beyond the ridges, traveling in a small research rover with its blinking blue lights. The humans had set up a tiny outpost on her world. They were odd pale creatures with bright eyes and large packs strapped to their backs. She had seen them from afar but never dared approach. Ethan had come to collect plant samples, searching for medicinal roots. He saw her collapsed body barely breathing, and slammed on the rover's brakes. When he approached, he was struck by her shimmering violet skin, the long horns, and the way her thin fingers trembled as she breathed. In that moment, he didn't see a monster. He saw a girl abandoned and broken, fighting to exist in a world that despised her. He gently scooped her up, muttering softly, Hey, you're okay, I got you, hold on." Her eyes fluttered open just enough to catch the glint of his suit's light on his face. She shivered, tried to push him away, but she was too weak. Ethan carried her back to his rover, wrapping her in a thermal blanket, giving her careful sips of water. She flinched each time he touched her. No one had touched her kindly in so many years. She whispered hoarsely, "Why do you help me? I will bring you ruin, you will sicken, die." He shook his head, brushing her silver hair from her forehead. "You're not a curse. You're a living being. You deserve warmth and food and kindness. No one deserves to be left to die." When they reached the human outpost, the other humans gathered, eyes wide at the sight of her. Some murmured in shock, "Is that one of the locals? What's wrong with her skin?" But Ethan stood firm, shielding her behind him. "She's staying with me. She needs care. We will not turn her away." Over the next days, he fed her warm broth, taught her to drink slowly without choking, and tended to her wounds with careful hands. Her violet skin healed slowly, though the scars on her arms remained as pale ridges. Her horns gleamed under the lab lights, and she learned to hide them beneath a scarf Ethan gifted her. One evening, as she watched Ethan work on his research samples, she asked softly, "Why are you so kind? Humans are not known to me. I thought you would fear me too." Ethan laughed gently. "Maybe we humans are foolish, or maybe we just see differently. Where they see a curse, I see someone strong enough to survive all alone, someone who didn't give up even when the whole world turned against her." She felt her throat tighten. She had no words. Instead, she leaned forward, tentatively resting her forehead against his shoulder. He froze for a moment, then carefully wrapped an arm around her back. She had never been embraced before, not since her mother. Tears slipped from her eyes, soaking into Ethan's sleeve. In the following weeks, she learned the human words for things: cup, water, bread, stars. She called herself Ziri, a name she remembered her mother whispering when she was very small. Ethan called her by it every day, Ziri, come try this soup. Ziri, look at this flower under the microscope. Ziri, you're safe now. One night, a storm lashed the outpost, winds screaming like angry spirits. Ziri curled in a corner, covering her ears. Ethan found her trembling and pulled her close. It's just wind, it can't hurt you here. You're okay, I promise.
She clung to him, sobbing.
After the storm, she ventured outside for the first time since arriving, marveling at the clear sky and the distant stars. Ethan stood beside her, hands in his pockets, smiling. She looked at him with wide violet eyes. Do you think they will ever accept me, my people? Ethan sighed. Maybe not, maybe they don't deserve to. But you don't need them to define who you are. You're strong on your own. You have me. Ziri touched his hand lightly, as if it might vanish if she pressed too hard. In that simple touch, she felt something new stir in her chest, hope. For the first time, she wondered if she could belong anywhere at all. Not because she was useful, not because she was a sacrifice, but because she was Ziri. Over the next moons, she grew stronger, her eyes brighter, her voice steady. Ethan taught her about human music, how to hum soft tunes that vibrated gently through her horns. She began to sing again, this time not lullabies of sorrow but melodies that rose and twirled like dawn light. One morning, as she worked beside Ethan planting small medicinal herbs in the greenhouse, she looked up at him. If they call me cursed, what do you call me? Ethan paused, wiping sweat from his brow, then crouched to her level. His eyes locked on hers, unwavering. I call you a miracle, Ziri. A miracle that survived hatred and loneliness and still found a way to shine.
Her breath caught.
A miracle. No one had ever called her that. The word felt heavy and warm in her chest, spreading through her like sunlight. She lowered her gaze shyly, then burst into a sudden smile, bright and radiant. From that day on, she no longer hid her horns. She wore her scarf around her shoulders instead, letting the silver spirals catch the light. When she sang, she let her voice carry beyond the walls of the outpost, echoing into the valleys below. Some villagers claimed they heard the haunting notes at night and thought them ghostly warnings, but Ethan always told her, let them think what they want. You don't belong to their fear anymore. You are your own story now. And so, Ziri stayed. She learned, healed, and sang. Slowly, she began to greet new human researchers when they visited. They were hesitant at first, some startled by her appearance, but when they heard her voice, saw her gentle hands tending the fragile seedlings, they softened. They left her small gifts, painted stones, tiny charms, even an old radio that played human love songs. Ziri started to collect these items on a shelf beside her sleeping mat. Each piece reminded her that there was kindness beyond pain, that strangers could become something close to family. One evening, as the orange sun dipped behind the snowy ridges, she sat with Ethan, sharing tea. She looked over at him, violet eyes shimmering. You were the first to see me, really see me. I thought I would die alone. But you saw a miracle. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, and I would do it again 1,000 times. She laughed softly, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. I don't think I'm cursed anymore. I think I was waiting for someone to find me, someone who didn't believe in curses. He nodded, resting his forehead lightly against hers. You're not cursed, you're a gift to this universe. And so, in a world that once named her a curse, she found herself reborn, not through power or vengeance, but through the simple, unwavering warmth of one human heart. A heart that refused to see her as anything less than extraordinary. Ziri woke before dawn, her violet skin glowing faintly under the thin pre-dawn light. She sat at the small wooden table Ethan had built for her, turning a tiny painted stone over and over in her hands. The stone had been a gift from one of the visiting human botanists. A simple thing, covered in bright swirling patterns, but to Ziri it felt like a token of something she never believed she could have, a place, a home, a family. Ethan stirred from his cot across the room, rubbing his eyes, smiling as he always did when he saw her awake before him. Early today, huh? He teased gently, his voice still rough with sleep. Ziri pressed the stone to her chest and nodded, her silver hair spilling around her shoulders like moonlight. I dreamed I was flying last night, Ethan, she said softly, her voice trembling with wonder. Not falling, not hiding, just soaring over the valleys, above the clouds. I could see the stars so close, I almost touched them. Ethan stepped over, crouching beside her, eyes bright despite the morning's chill. Then maybe it's a sign. You've been growing, Ziri. Stronger every day. Maybe you were always meant to fly, even without wings. Ziri reached out, her delicate fingers brushing against his cheek. Because of you, she whispered. You gave me breath when I was dying. You gave me food when I was starving. You gave me warmth when I thought all warmth was gone. You made me feel real. Ethan closed his hand over hers, holding it firmly. You were always real, Ziri. You just needed someone to remind you. Outside, the sky slowly shifted to gold and pink. The mountains looked softer in that gentle light, the valley below still shrouded in morning mist. Scifi stood, pulling on her scarf, leaving her horns uncovered as she did now every day. "Let's show them the new seedlings today," she said, eyes sparkling with excitement. "I think they're finally strong enough to stand on their own." Together they walked to the greenhouse, the door creaking slightly as they entered. Inside, rows of alien herbs and native blooms reached for the light. Scifi knelt, checking each leaf and root with careful, practiced fingers. Ethan watched her, pride blooming in his chest. Every movement she made radiated a quiet strength, each small gesture a silent defiance against the world that once called her cursed. She looked up at him, eyes gleaming. "They're beautiful, aren't they? Even the smallest ones, they fight so hard to live. Just like you," Ethan said. Scifi flushed, the violet on her cheeks deepening to a bright lavender. She turned quickly back to the seedlings, her hands shaking just a little. Ethan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to hide anymore, Scifi. Not your face, not your horns, not your heart. She leaned into his touch, eyes closing. For a moment, all the old echoes of hate and fear fell away. She was just a girl in a greenhouse with someone who believed in her. Later that afternoon, a group of villagers approached the outer gates. Scifi saw them first through the greenhouse window. There were elders and younger warriors, all armed with spears tipped in obsidian. Her body tensed, her breath catching in her throat. "Ethan, they're here," she whispered. Ethan followed her gaze, his jaw tightening. "Stay behind me," he said. They stepped out together, Ethan moving to stand protectively in front of her. One elder stepped forward, his long white braids trembling in the breeze.
"We have come for the cursed one," he announced coldly.
"She has brought sickness upon the mountain. Our crops have withered, and the rain will not fall. Hand her over." Scifi's fingers dug into Ethan's sleeve, her eyes wide with terror. Ethan shook his head slowly, his voice low but firm.
"No.
She's not going anywhere with you. You abandoned her, left her to die. You don't get to claim her now. The elder scowled, gripping his spear tighter. "You do not understand our ways, human.
She is an omen, a blight.
We must cleanse her spirit to restore balance." Ethan stepped forward, standing so close the elder had to lean back slightly.
She is not a curse.
She is a miracle. She saved our lives more than once here. Her knowledge of local plants, her strength, her music, all of it has helped this outpost survive.
She belongs here. X.
You will not take her. The warriors shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other. Scifi trembled behind Ethan, but she felt something rise inside her, a warmth stronger than any fear she had known. She stepped forward, her voice soft but unwavering. "I am not your curse. You cannot blame me for your failings anymore. You told me I would bring death, but I have brought life here. The elder opened his mouth to protest, but Scifi raised a hand, her violet skin glowing faintly in the sunlight. "Look at me," she said, her voice gaining power with each word.
"I am not a demon.
I am not a spirit to be feared. I am Scifi. And I choose to live. There was a stunned silence. Slowly, one of the younger warriors lowered his spear. Another stepped back entirely, eyes darting to the ground in shame. The elder snarled, turning on his heel, and began to retreat, the others following him in confusion and hesitation. Scifi stood, chest heaving, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Ethan turned, staring at her in awe.
"You did it," he whispered. "You faced them.
You stood your ground." Scifi shivered, tears finally spilling over. "I was so scared," she admitted, her voice breaking. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about standing anyway. Scifi buried her face against his chest, her sobs quiet but fierce. For the first time, she felt her heart finally shed the heavy chains of their hatred. She could breathe freely.
She was free.
Over the next weeks, the villagers never returned. The outpost continued its work, and the humans slowly grew to see Scifi not as a curiosity but as a vital part of their small community. She taught them new songs from the old mountains, helped them identify healing herbs no scanner could detect, and shared her bright laughter in the evenings as they sat around their small communal fire. One evening, as the group gathered to watch the twin moons rise, Scifi turned to Ethan. "Do you remember the first night I arrived here?" she asked. "I remember every second," Ethan said, smiling. Scifi reached for his hand, her fingers threading through his. "I thought you would be my end. That you would fear me and cast me out like they did. But you saw a miracle. You saw me. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "You were always so much more than they could ever understand. You were always a miracle to me. Scifi leaned in, pressing her forehead to his. "Thank you for calling me your miracle. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for letting me," Ethan whispered back. In that moment, the warmth between them felt as wide and deep as the night sky. Ziri looked up at the stars above, the same stars she had once wished would take her away, and felt a soft, quiet joy fill her heart. She had always been looking for a place to belong. She never imagined it would be here, on the edge of the mountains, in the arms of a human who refused to let her believe she was cursed. The moons rose higher, painting silver light over her horns and her shimmering hair. Ethan stayed beside her, silent, their hands joined. The others sang softly around the fire, their voices weaving into a gentle, comforting chorus. In the background, the seedling Ziri had nurtured began to bloom, delicate flowers opening under the moonlight, a living testament to her gentle, defiant spirit. The girl once called cursed now stood as a symbol of hope and resilience. In every laugh, every song, every shared meal, she carved out a new legacy, not of fear but of love. Not of exile, but of belonging. In the final quiet hours before dawn, as the fire burned low and the stars blinked above like watchful eyes, Ziri finally allowed herself to believe she was exactly what Ethan had always said, a miracle. And in that belief, she soared higher than she had ever dreamed possible, not with wings, but with the unstoppable force of a heart finally completely free.